What if I told you some students are failing who could succeed, and others are passing who aren't actually prepared? So now we have to ask a hard question. Are we educating students or just moving them along? Welcome back to the Advocate Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Christy in Love. And in this episode, we're going to talk about something that doesn't get enough attention. What happens after the grade? Because a passing grade should mean something, but right now, sometimes it doesn't. Let's go.
Dr. Christy in Love is an experienced educator and advocate dedicated to empowering students and families to ensure children receive a high-quality education. She specializes in culturally responsive teaching, restorative practices, and social-emotional learning, helping schools create supportive and inclusive environments. Through the Advocate Podcast, she amplifies voices, challenges inequitable systems, and keeps children at the center of every conversation.
I remember sitting with a student, looking at their report card, A's and B's. Everything looked fine on paper, but when I asked a simple question about the content, they paused, looked at me and said, "I don't know, I just did the work." That moment stayed with me because it forced me to ask, what are our grades actually measuring? We've all seen it. The student who turns everything in, follows directions, and behaves well, and earns passing grades. But when you go deeper, the understanding isn't there. And this is not an attack on students. It's not even about individual teachers. It's about the system we're working within. Because compliance is not the same as comprehension. And unfortunately, this is not an isolated experience. I was scrolling social media recently, and I came across a post that really stuck with me. It said something along the lines of, students are passing but not really learning. Grades look fine, but the skills aren't there. And what stood out to me wasn't just the statement. It was how many people agreed. Parents agreed, teachers agreed, even students agreed. And I've also seen students describe school in a way that they said learning feels rushed, like you're moving from topic to topic without really understanding anything deeply, that it's less about learning and more about just getting through. And when that becomes the experience, it makes sense why students start focusing on grades instead of knowledge. So we have students who have learned how to do school, but not necessarily how to learn. And many of us were those students, right? These students know how to complete assignments, follow rubrics, and play the grade game, but when faced with new problems, real-world situations, and independent thinking, they struggle. We trained them to perform, but we didn't always train them how to think. Then we have the other side, students who are passing classes without mastering the standards. Maybe they did just enough, got partial credit, benefited from grade inflation, or were moved along to avoid retention. And again, this is not about blame. This is about systems and practices. If grades don't clearly reflect learning, then passing stops meaning anything at all. At the core of all of this are standards, what students are actually expected to know and be able to do. But if a student can pass a class without demonstrating mastery of those standards, then we have to ask, what does the grade actually represent? Is it learning or is it completion? I've had conversations with parents who say, my child is passing, so they're doing good, right? And that's a fair assumption because we've been taught passing equals success. But what if that's not always true? A student can pass a class and still struggle with the content. And that's where the disconnect begins. And then comes the moment of truth. College, the workforce, real life. And suddenly there are fewer second chances, less handholding, and higher expectations for independence. And we're seeing something concerning. A significant number of students who graduate high school still need remedial courses in college. Courses they have to pay for that don't even count toward their degree. And in the workforce, employers are spending time retraining skills students were expected to already have. And the world doesn't ask, what's your grade? It asks, can you do it? There's a concept in education introduced by Paulo Freire, my posthumous mentor, called the banking model of education, where students are treated like empty accounts and teachers deposit information into them. And when learning becomes about completing tasks, earning points, and moving on, we start to see the model show up. Students learn how to receive information, but not always how to question it, apply it, or think critically about it. And what resonates with me about that is that learning shouldn't just be something students receive. It should be something they help create. When students can connect content to their lived experiences, when they can examine real issues in their own communities, that's when learning becomes meaningful. That's when we move from memorization to critical thinking to problem solving. Students shouldn't just learn about the world. They should be prepared to change it. Because preparing students today isn't just about content. It's about whether they can solve problems they've never seen before, explain their thinking, and work through challenges without giving up. And those skills don't come from memorization alone. They come from thinking, struggling, and applying. This issue also has an equity component because not all students experience school in the same way. Some students are given more grace, given fewer challenges, and passed along to avoid conflict, while others are held to higher standards and expected to perform consistently. And when expectations aren't clear or consistent, outcomes won't be either. Schools often feel caught between two pressures: support students or maintain standards. And sometimes, in trying to support, we lower the bar instead of lifting the student. Now I can already hear some people saying, we can't just fail students. They have a lot going on. We have to meet them where they are. And all of that is true. But here's the question. Does meeting students where they are mean we leave them there? But real support is not lowering expectations. It's increasing support so students can meet them. We also know something important from research. One of the most powerful school-related factors in student success is teacher efficacy. The belief that what we do actually impacts students' learning. When that belief is strong, we don't just ask, did I teach it? We ask, what do I need to adjust so they learn it? But here's the challenge. Many educators were never deeply trained in how to design learning for critical thinking, or use data in meaningful ways, or collaborate in ways that truly impact instruction. And that's not a teacher failure. That's a system gap. I even asked my son a question one time. I said, has a math teacher ever watched you solve a problem and asked you to explain your thinking as you were doing it? And that question stayed with me because it made me think about how often we evaluate answers, but don't always examine thinking. And I'll be honest, this hit me personally too. For years, I thought PEMDAS, the order of operations, meant you always did multiplication before division because the M came before the D. And it wasn't until adulthood, actually recently, that I realized it actually means multiplication or division, whichever comes first from left to right. And I started thinking, how many problems did I get wrong? Not because I couldn't do the math, but because I misunderstood the concept. And no teacher ever caught it. I passed every math class with an A. And that's the point. A grade told one story, but my understanding told another. And if no one is listening to how students think, we can miss misconceptions completely. Meaningful feedback isn't just when students are wrong. It's also for when they're right. Because understanding how they got there matters just as much as the answer itself. If we only grade answers, we can miss the thinking that got them there. So, what does it actually mean to prepare students? Real preparation means mastery matters. Students should be able to say, I can do this, not just I passed this. Real preparation requires productive struggle. Students need opportunities to think, struggle, and try again, because that's where real learning happens. Real preparation requires honest and actionable feedback. Students deserve to know where they are, what they need, and how to improve, not just a number or a letter. And real preparation requires rigor and support. That's not an either or, it's both. Parents, this matters for you too, because a report card doesn't always tell the truth. We need to ask better questions of our children. Instead of, what did you make? Ask, what do you understand? What's challenging you? What are you still working on? We have to be honest. Right now, in some cases, we are passing students who are not prepared, and we are failing students who could succeed with the right support, and both are unacceptable. At the beginning, I asked you a question. Are we preparing students or just passing them through? Now that you've sat with this, what's your answer? Because at some point, students leave our classrooms and they walk into college, job interviews, real responsibilities. And in that moment, the grade doesn't go with them. What goes with them is what they actually know how to do. Because education is not about getting students to the end of a course. It's about preparing them for what comes next. If this episode made you think, share it, start the conversation, and ask yourself, if a student passes my class, what does that actually mean? Because the answer to that question shapes their future. Thank you again for joining the Advocate Podcast. I've been your host, Dr. Christy in Love. And until next time, keep asking the hard questions, keep showing up for children, and keep advocating. Because children deserve adults who won't stop fighting for them. Be blessed.